On today's show, we're going to be talking about where design systems should live in your organization. Do design systems belong in the ivory tower by themselves, in design, in engineering, or in the cupboard in the basement? I'm Luke Murphy. I'm a design advocate at Zero Height, the design system management platform, and I'm joined by my co-host Michelle Chin, design systems and design ops consultant extraordinaire, and this is Design Systems WTF. Okay, I feel like this one's going to be a good long one. So first off, straight off the bat, where should they sit?
I think they should sit in a space that's called like foundations or platform.
Oh, okay, I agree. Okay, we're done then. Questions? Anybody?
Nice.
No, I think that's the thing, because I think at the moment, well, it's interesting. Like, where do you? I'm curious from like your perspective, because having worked in design systems teams and talked to a lot of people, as I have as well, like, where do you see most commonly they currently sit?
So yeah, most currently they definitely sit very like within the design system or the design org, sorry. So with maybe some like, I don't know, little like dotted lines to a few engineers here and there, but maybe they have their own dedicated engineers that aren't on the engineering team. They're on the design team as either UX engineers or creative technologists.
Yeah. Okay. Good. That tracks with what I've heard as well. I've also heard them sitting randomly in the engineering org as well. Although that's a lot rarer. Usually when it's a very engineering driven one, and then also the lovely just sit somewhere off, floating in no person's land. Just, I don't know, kind of dotted line reporting into somebody within the product org, but it's but yeah, which I think is basically, that's the one that I think is wrong. And then yeah, design ops as well is one that we've heard as well. The design ops sitting there. I 100% agree with you though. I think platform is a really important term that we should be normalizing as a place for design systems to live within. I'm curious, actually, do you think that there should be a design systems team anymore? Leading question.
I want to say it depends. Because I can see both ways, right? But I think, it's like when there is no team, then how is stuff supposed to get done? Because then it doesn't seem like a thing that exists that has priority. But I also don't think a team should just be like, in an ivory tower, so to speak, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
So it's a very awkward space, which is why we're here.
So I think that this is what I kind of mentioned in the article, is that I do think that there's a bit of a problem at the moment with, you've heard me talk about design systems being commodified and it being like this unapproachable or like obfuscated entity that is hard to understand, because what are design systems, right, to people who don't know what design systems are. I'm actually of the opinion now that in the future, but I don't think that this is the case now. I think in the future, I'd love to see a platform, like product delivery team that is kind of like a platform team, that includes the elements of design systems. So people who are managing, the libraries, who are managing workflows, who are managing the way that people work, as well as things like DevOps, as well as, I don't know, I was even talking to somebody today about the concept of having like product management sitting in that kind of one as well. At least, I don't know, functionally in there as well, even though they're, probably in squads as well. Because I think that part of this, I was actually talking to Andrew over at Knapsack about this a couple of weeks ago. I really want design systems to be rebranded as like a product delivery platform or product delivery process or product delivery something.
Yeah.
It won't be, but I do think that that's actually almost the way that we need to start thinking about it in terms of how we sell it into the org.
For sure. I mean, I think
Mm.
because the path to the existence of design systems came from designy roots, right? So then
Yeah.
it's kind of like latched on, and it's always I think that's also why. Well, I think we just, we weren't thinking about the impact in the future of things, right? Like, had we thought
Yeah.
about like what does this really mean in the long run, we probably would have rethought some things and not put it under the design org or called it design systems. But hey, we're here now.
So, what do you think are the problems with sitting the design systems team in the design org?
I
Do you
think
think there are problems?
I I think there are, because I've experienced some problems. And that a lot of it was like adoption and buy-in from like engineering to use the design system. They just didn't, like, people just didn't want to, for whatever reason. But also there was no one on in the engineer, like there were very few people on the engineering side that could evangelize and articulate at scale to help people, to help engineers use the design system.
Which, I mean, it goes back to the whole why, building community and having communications plan and all those kind of things, getting stakeholders on board and actually having a communications plan to get stakeholders on board is a very important thing, which we've talked about before. But at the same time, like in reality, it's like nobody's got time for that, right? Ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah, unless someone forces it on you, right? Like that you have to use the design system. I think that's the problem
Yeah.
I ran into. Like when I was trying to scale the design system at an enterprise company, I didn't feel right going to engineering and all the engineering teams and being like, you must use this. 'Cause it's like, who are you? You're just some design person. I needed like an engineering ops, and not like dev ops, but like I was doing design ops. So like a counterpart to me to really say, hey, we need to use this. And then to have them help in shepherding that adoption, right? And that usage. So very much a shared responsibility. So I don't think that's why I feel like it should live in some sort of like platform area, much like security and accessibility, right? Yeah.
It's really interesting because it was I actually asked this in preparation for the episode. I asked on the design systems subreddit for my sins. I asked them what they thought, and there was somebody who posted in there a very interesting situation that they're in, where they were working in an org where the design systems actually sat in the engineering, like DevOps team. Like it was the platform team, but it was very much the engineering platform team. And I don't hate it. And I think a large part of why I don't hate it, at least for now, is because like you said, like I think engineering is one of the at least from the folks that we've talked to and the experience I've had in the past, is that engineering is slightly harder to get on board with the design system than designers are. And I think that it's like, I don't know, it feels like that there's like usually more. Actually, no, I'm not going to dig myself in that hole. I was going to say there's more work on the engineering side, but I think that it's like, I don't know. It feels, I think there's a perception that there's more work on the engineering side that needs to be done for design systems, that I think if you don't have that internal buy-in makes it really hard. And I think that situating it within the engineering team could actually help with just, it's that conceptual like buy-in, because it's like if they go, oh, that's in our area, it's automatically an easy like position for them to understand, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Because that's, I mean, ostensibly that's what we're kind of talking about here as well. It's like, how are you positioning your what you're trying to do and the problems you're trying to solve within the organization in a way that it's going to gel as sort of best as possible. But I think that is very much a for now problem. Like it's like a for now solution. It's like a band-aid. And I actually, again, like somebody else in there was saying, and they didn't come back to give me any more color around this, but one person was like, it should sit with the PMs. And it made me think, and I'm like, actually, design systems sitting with the especially in companies where it's very like product led, as in product function led,
Hmm.
which I don't agree with because I don't think that product function led is a particularly healthy way to like run product companies, but it is the reality. Like the reality is that a lot of companies run that way. um I do almost feel like actually situating it within that part of the org might be an even more powerful way to do it, because who decides what work gets done and what gets prioritized and like what is on the roadmap and like where resources are spent? It's usually that product org, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing is like I've run into a lot of like challenges, and I don't fault the PMs, but like when trying to get more like resources for the design system,
Yeah.
they're like, I can't give up an engineer. We have to deliver these features. Like I get that. And so then I didn't have an engineer, right? So but if it was also something that they, were accountable for, they could plan for it better, right? So like rather than like,
Yeah.
oh, an ad hoc thing or something to like a extracurricular project, they would see it as like, okay, this is a priority. And I think, there are some PMs that lead design system teams, which is really good because then
Yeah,
I think they
totally.
can speak the same language as the other PMs and help kind of figure out, navigate like how to prioritize and what makes most sense to do when and where and that type of stuff. And I think that could be, like you said, like super powerful.
And I think that's the interesting thing too, is that like I think so Stephen in the chat has pointed out that like adherence to a design system should be mandated from the highest level champion in the org as possible. And I 100% agree with that. Like I think in if I'm talking in that, you know, world of products, like product function led product teams, um I actually think that if possible, as possible as it is, like design systems should be as high up that chain as possible. Like ideally, the person leading the design system should be reporting directly into whoever the highest level person is there. Because I do think that it's like, I don't know. Currently, that's how I feel. Because I think that it's like, it's got the best chance of being sort of like mandated and um, sort of it's top down, but it's like top down for the greater good. um, if that makes sense. But I do think that part of the problem that we face at the moment is that the higher up that chain you go in any wherever design systems is situated, the more chance you have of that like lack of understanding about what a design system is trying to do and the value of it. Um, because I do think that like we are in a stage at the moment, and I talked about this in my article. If we look at the I bloody love a good Gartner hype cycle. If we look at the hype cycle, right? And the last place it was like pinned, which was 2023, was top of peak of inflated expectations, which, the thing that goes with that is it's basically like there's almost like unanimous like people are learning about design systems and there's almost like unanimous buy-in with little need for like it's almost like there's inflated expectations, right? There's inflated expectation of value and less is required to like prove that out. So that initial buy-in is not particularly hard when you're at the peak of inflated expectations because everybody goes, oh, I heard about design systems, we need to invest in that, let's do it. The problem is, it's been almost 2 years since they put us there, which means that in reality, we're probably sliding into that lovely trough of disillusionment. And one of the markers of the trough of disillusionment is those inflated expectations did not bear like direct value. Um, or it's like people are more putting more scrutiny on like that value and the expectations out of it, which means that it's harder to sell in. And I think that naturally within orgs, like the further you go up the chain, the harder that value is to sell in. So that's why it's like I think it's like we shouldn't like kind of like run before we can walk in terms of like trying to situate where we are in the org. We should stay closest to whoever the highest up champion we can get to is.
But
Does
I
that make
guess like
sense?
how would we get to like I guess assuming that having it be part of like a platform team, like how do we get to that if we're going to stay safe, right? Like, how do we make that jump?
Well, I actually think that it's an industry thing. I think that is what we I think that it's kind of on us as the people who love design systems and see the value in it and shout about it. Not us as in me and you, but I mean us as in the community. The early adopters, the people who have actually, had some success in selling this in. I think now is the time that we kind of stand back. And I don't know, I'm definitely looking at 2025 as like the time where I try and rally people together to be like, hey, yo, we need to get together. We need to figure this shit out. And we need to figure out how we're selling this in over the next like 2 years. And any changes in particular that we need to make to get to a point where that is as easy as possible. And I think part of that is like, I don't know, as a community starting to shift the way that we talk about design systems, because I do feel like I was having a chat with Dave, our lovely developer advocate, who was talking to Dave Rupert, who's like a big front end engineering person, not design systems specifically, just big sort of like front end engineering. And Dave Rupert was lamenting the fact that he's like, oh yeah, all anybody talks about with design systems is components and tokens. And I'm like, yep, sounds good. Yep, that's pretty much spot on. And I think that's the thing. I think we need to figure out what it is that we need to start talking about more to get out of everybody just talking about, like, the masses just talking about components and tokens. Because I think that just talking about components and tokens isn't going to win us anything. Or alternatively, maybe we do just talk about components and tokens, but we talk about components and tokens. We don't talk about components and tokens equals design systems.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure.
We start obfuscating the language, basically. Yeah. Like, we start actually talking about, okay, we're building, libraries. We're building pattern libraries or component libraries. We're talking about our, tokens or like design decision. I know that was something that Gina loves to talk about. Design decision workflow, automation process. But we start to talk about it in like more tangible terms than like trying to just I don't know. The impression that I get is like it's design systems and you don't understand it.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is like I just taught a class at Ambition and Power, and our like activity today was to get how do you maintain buy-in, because like you said, getting buy-in is easy to do. Like, oh, we need a design system, obviously.
It has been.
But
it's not going to be for the next year.
Yeah, and so I think also like getting that like maintenance buy-in of like stretching that adoption, getting the tools and resources you need, like it becomes, that's where the challenge is. And like having it be more relatable to your stakeholders is super important. And they're not going to relate to components and tokens. Like they're going to want to know, how does this really move and impact the business, and really selling it that way. But I think, a good step I started to notice is that like a lot of people have titles or are looking for people as like director of like foundations, which includes design systems and accessibility, right? Like they're carving out that space for the role. And maybe that's within the design org for now, but it's like a step forward that you're recognizing, like people are recognizing. And like I mentioned, like the design system lives within designops and the design org. So it's like people are understanding there's like this like more operational, like a foundational space, which is good. It's like it's a move in the right direction, right?
It is. And I think it is. I think there's still an issue I have with design ops. I love design ops. There's an issue I have with the fact that we now have DevOps, product ops, research ops, design ops, and they all seem to sit in their own teams and in a lot of places don't kind of talk to each other. Like that feels broken. Like that doesn't feel like, and it's funny because it's like design ops in itself is actually behind design systems on like the adoption curve. So I mean, it's maybe something that we need to look at there too, like being like, hey, are we actually setting ourselves up for success when it comes to design ops in itself?
Yeah, no, that is a really, really good question. Yeah, I feel like everyone started to make a flavor of ops for whatever team they were in.
Yep, yeah. I think that we need ops for absolutely everything. I'm actually starting the podcast ops department at Zero Height at the moment.
Nice.
It's good. By the way, if anybody does have any questions, please throw them in the chat. We've only got 5 minutes left, but still, we were just on a roll there. That's the problem. But I do think that I do think that you're right in terms of like the platform level. And it's like what else goes into platform, because I think that part of this as well is like it's why I don't know, there's something in like not having a design systems team in design ops, but having people who work on what we know as the design system within the design ops team. So like you were saying, like platform, like director of platform, or and accessibility, and things like design tooling, and like yeah, I mean, I know somebody at Wise who's a creative technologist who I've again mentioned many times here, but it's like even that I'm like, actually his job is like design tooling. Like that is his job. It's to extend the design tooling that they have to make it more efficient and productive for them. And I kind of see like that as like another role that could sit within that team. Things like I don't know. I'm trying to think what you would call somebody who basically the whole job is about governance and workflows. I mean, I don't know if I'd ever wish that job on to anybody.
Yeah, I was gonna say like who would apply to that job?
But I
make
do
the
think,
rules.
yeah, I think it's really interesting though, because I do think, again, like I was chatting to somebody today about it, because I'm like, we already have operations teams for our companies. And if you think about what the operations teams in the like business do, it's about keeping everything running smoothly and like as efficiently and as productively as possible, like as a business. And all we're doing is we're taking that exact same model and we're applying it at a lower level, which I think is like good. And that's obviously the idea behind design ops and DevOps and all the rest of it too. But it's like, hey, maybe we've taken it down a level too far and we need to split it up a level above that.
Yeah, like have some sort of shared space where maybe, some people like it's like almost like a T-shaped like space. So it's like
Yeah.
everyone's, thinking about tooling across the board, but then some people specialize in like design tooling or evaluating engineering tools. But yeah, I think it gets like it gets messy because now it's like a blended space, and I think that's where people are hesitant, right? Like it's just people want to have very defined boundaries. Like, oh, you're a designer, you report to the design manager, you're part of the design org. But I feel like it almost needs to be matrix, right? Like you have a multi-disciplined like space, like platform, but maybe the designer does report into the design manager and their career ladders are based in the design space, right? So they're getting that career development and within their discipline, but they're still contributing to the broader team.
Yeah.
I think it's messier, and so people don't want messy.
But at the same time, I feel like it does end up in a space that is like, it has a lot more potential for like really powerful ways of working as well.
Yeah.
Because I do feel like those silos are what's causing a lot of the friction that we currently have anyway. In terms
100%.
of like, yeah, it's the way that again with the whole Marty Kagan 3 legs of a stool thing. Like, I mean, what is it? He suggests that it's 3 legs of a stool with a PM sitting on top. But but I do think that like there's something I don't know, something more blended and something more productive. Anyway, I'm not providing solutions here. I'm just waffling now.
I mean, I think we have like a good idea, but it's just like that path to get there is going to be the challenge. Like we need some team to like venture out and try it and report back to everybody so we can all say, hey, look, it worked here.
It's interesting. I actually want to hear, maybe we should try and get somebody on the podcast for it. But I know that this is relatively similar to how Spotify had their design system set up with because they also had, quite a large design system org. with like multiple teams across Encore. They did, however, just lay a bunch of them off. So maybe it's not the best model to base it on.
I mean, I think that's the other thing is like design systems are fluid. Like at some point you're going to have a lot of design system people, and then at some point you don't need a lot of design system people, right? I think maybe, you don't need design system people, I don't know, later because of AI. Who knows, right?
Oh, okay. I think this is another interesting topic to get into at a later date. At what point can you fire your whole design system team? That
apparently some people think whatever they want.
Yeah, I was going to say we do not advocate for that. That is definitely not something that we are suggesting, because unfortunately, it seems to be the state of the industry at the moment. Yeah. Cool. I think we've run out of time for today, but I think we've suggested, we've had some interesting conversations. Didn't really get many questions, but that's fine.
Because everyone's thinking about how to implement this, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm telling myself, and it's next year's problem. So
instead, yeah, that's the thing. 2025 is our year to sort this out. In fact, I don't know how this is going to take shape, but I really just want to get a whole bunch of design systems people into a room together, not for a conference, but like just to discuss this, and to like figure it out, like do some kind of like, I don't know. We can create the design systems version of the Masons. We can have a secret handshake as well, and we can sort out the world. Well, not what was that? The Illuminati. It's the design systems Illuminati.
Yeah. Make a manifesto.
Yeah, it'll be great. That was what I wanted to do for 2025. I love a good manifesto.
We still have time.
Yeah, we will. I'll make this happen. Cool. So that's all the time we have for today, even though we keep trying to go longer. As usual, if you want to get in touch with us, please do. If you've got any suggestions for topics, or you've got questions or comments, please shoot them through to us at community@zeroheight.com. Or you can get in touch with us now on Blue Sky, because we've given up on the evil Rocket Man platform. So if you want to get in touch with Zero Height on Blue Sky, then you can do so. We're at zeroheight.com, I believe. Or I'm at lurkmufi.bsky.social.
And I'm at soysaucechin.bsky.social.
Yeah, you can also look us up on LinkedIn. We're there as well. We'll be sending these recordings out after the fact, and we'll also be posting on YouTube and on all the regular podcast platforms. Next topic?
Yeah,
is it in the new year? No, it's not in the new year.
No, we've got one more, I believe. Yeah.
Cool.
So it's how much is too much documentation.
Ooh, spicy. Cool. That will be in 2 weeks' time. We'll do the live recording, and then we'll be releasing about 2 weeks after that. I don't know how these things work. Time, what is it? And then we'll be back in the new year.
Yeah, should be exciting.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Thanks, everybody, and see you next time.
Thanks.